All right. Thank you very much, Greg. Thank you, CEA, for having me tonight. I think, yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful showing here. I think somebody just asked a question about, well, what about the breach of the mine fracture on the San Juan Ridge? Could that happen at the Idaho-Maryland mine? Well, yes, I'm here to talk about the possibility of that. So I've been with the San Juan Ridge Taxpayers Association as right about the time that the San Juan Ridge mine submitted their application to mine the North Columbia Diggins in 2012. And so Gary gave really a great presentation that is talking about what initial dewatering and maintenance dewatering of a mine operation can do to our aquifer. And I'm here to give you the cautionary tale of what can happen with catastrophic dewatering that could absolutely happen with the Idaho-Maryland mine as well. And so the time I'm going to talk about is actually a previous version of the San Juan Ridge mine, which is known as Siscon Gold, that actually got permitted in 1993 to mine the North Columbia Diggins. Now, the North Columbia Diggins mine is a very similar kind of mine to the Idaho-Maryland mine. The Idaho-Maryland mine is a hard rock mine, and it's in fractured bedrock and a fractured bedrock aquifer. The San Juan Ridge mine is it's actually in gravels, but it's cemented gravels, so it actually acts very similar to what you would see with the Idaho-Maryland mine. I would say the major difference between the Idaho-Maryland mine proposal and the San Juan Ridge mine is that on the San Juan Ridge, we're talking about hundreds of wells, and the Idaho-Maryland mine is an urban area, talking about over 1,000 wells potentially impacted. So that's a massive difference. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Right. So this is a map. It's similar to kind of what Gary showed for the Idaho-Maryland mine, but this is our own mine property out on the San Juan Ridge, and you can see the mine property is actually this kind of rhinoceros type shape that is in dark gray, and off to the west, you'll see Tyler Foote Road running past Mother Truckers, if you know the San Juan Ridge. And then off to the east is Lake City Road. And right in the center, kind of the epicenter of the whole impacts of this project is Grizzly Hill School and the North Columbia Schoolhouse Cultural Center. And I just want to point out these black lines. These black lines are actually earthquake faults that run through the property at depth. And these are, they're very important because many of them have water running along it. And so if you breach one of those earthquake fault lines, then you can kind of have some catastrophic dewatering events. The other thing I want to show is this 2-mile boundary around the mine property, and that's a zone of impact that we called, an area where wells could be impacted by underground gold mining. And this became very significant for us, and I can talk about that some more. And then the red square is going to be the focus of the next couple slides here. So before we switch to the next slide, I'll say that Siscon Gold was permitted in 1993. They were only operating for a little over a year when on Labor Day, 1995, they blasted into one of these earthquake fault lines and caused massive dewatering. So go ahead and change the slide. little bit of a delay here. What you're going to see is it's like a topo map, but it is a map of the groundwater levels of our area before the catastrophic dewatering event. So those topo lines, you don't have to really get into the details of them, but each topo line is 500 feet. And for reference, there's Grizzly Hill School. And so this is what our healthy aquifer looked like until the 1995 event. Go ahead and change the slide. And so Gary was bringing up that great term, the cone of depression, the cone of all the water going into one area where they're mining and intercepting water. So they intercepted a massive amount of water right there just to the south of Grizzly Hill School, and it acted as a drain, draining that whole area of water. So the water table dropped around 300 feet right in the center of that cone of depression. And as a result, about a dozen wells were lost, and nobody actually knows the amount of water that was pulled out of this mine as a result. But they estimate around 6 million gallons a day, which seems like an underestimate to me, but that caused a dozen wells to go dry and untold impacts on many other wells. Grizzly Hill School and the North Columbia Schoolhouse lost their wells, and Grizzly Hill School, so Siscon Gold never admitted fault to causing these wells to go dry, but they did re-drill about a dozen wells. What we learned about our aquifer, unfortunately, is as you go deeper for your wells, your water quality gets worse. So it's not to say that there were contaminants coming from the mine, but it's just that when we re-drill to deeper depths in this area, our water quality got worse and worse. So if you have a well, if you have good water quality, if you have good water quantity, it is truly a precious thing, and you never want to mess with that. So a re-drilled well is absolutely no guarantee that you'll have what you currently have with your well. Grizzly Hill School suffered with water quality issues ever since their well was re-drilled. They drank bottled water off and on for a decade. And to this day, they have incredibly expensive water facility to filter their water. Also, I would like to say that there are also unknown health impacts to the impacted wells when people had their wells re-drilled. So there's a number of people that have had health issues, and those are just very hard to pinpoint. Did that come from the re-drilling of those wells? If you go to the next slide, you'll see that that's basically how the water levels changed. So before, we just had these kind of broad topo lines running through, and then after that project, we basically just had this big hole right where the mine project was, basically where all of the water got pulled into. All right, go ahead and go to the next slide. So some key takeaways from the 1995 event is that bedrock aquifers are highly complex. Anybody that tells you they understand what's happening in a bedrock fractured aquifer is not being forthcoming. They're highly complex, and truly, we show you all those fault lines in that map. The only reason we know where those fault lines are is because of this catastrophic dewatering event that we experience. We learned that water moves along fault lines and fracture lines. And so those are areas, water-bearing areas that, if blasted into, can cause catastrophic events. We learned that re-drilled wells don't guarantee a decent replacement, as with Grizzly Hill School and a number of other wells. And just that permanent aquifer damage is possible. Pathways change underground when you start messing around down there. So a key approach, bring up my slide here, a key approach that we had for how we took this information from the 1995 event and we addressed the 2012 mine proposal by the San Juan Ridge Mine is that we pushed for and won an effort to get a county facilitated and approved groundwater monitoring program with input from both the mine and the community. And so this allowed us to have a say in what should happen before an EIR came out. And we had a water monitoring program pre-EIR for water quality and quantity within the 2-mile boundary of impact around the mine property. And this created a baseline for what wells look like over time. So you can't just go out and do one measurement of a well. They change across the year, and they change from year to year, and they change both in quantity and quality. And I think just I really want to touch on, Gary, your numbers of 2 million gallons a day for maintenance dewatering, which is an incredible amount of water. If you think about 6 million gallons a day for a catastrophic dewatering event, 2 million gallons is a third of that amount every day coming out of your aquifer. And then the other thing that I want to note is that you can't really say you're going to have 1 to 2 million gallons a day dewatering out of these mine tunnels, because these mine tunnels are going to be getting expanded and growing and getting bigger. The larger the mine tunnel network, the more water you're intercepting. So I would imagine there's a much bigger range in the amount of water that's going to be coming out of this mine, especially near the end of when they've mined it. And for the San Juan Ridge Mine, when they said they would do the final build out of the mine, they were going to be intercepting 7 million gallons a day. That's 1 million gallons a day over what they said was occurring from the catastrophic mine dewatering. So anyway, really big issues here in regards to wells. And I just have one more slide there, and I believe it's just coming back to the map. Our water monitoring program, we had about 100 wells on our water monitoring program, and it was a really great program to get a baseline for people's wells well ahead of any kind of mine operation. So I think I will stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sol. That was